You are on a recorded Zoom, ladies and gentlemen, so do remember that your behavior needs to reflect something that you would like recorded. It may be used for the Flip Learning Network for the purposes of either promotion or discussion in our nonprofit organization. So first and foremost, we thank our presenters and our participants, and we hope that everyone behaves in a professional manner. All right, you're up, Angie.
Okay, Kristen, if you want to share your screen.
Okay.
And then also too, we'll put in the chat the bit.ly, and it will also be posted on our. So if you look in the corner of the slide on the top right, that's the bit.ly. So if you go ahead and open up another tab and join our presentation, we have a quick survey for you embedded. It says NGSS and Hyperdoc survey. If you don't mind doing that for us. I believe it's only 2 questions. Okay, so response, looked at the standards, have heard of the 5E model. Also too, this is primarily based on NGSS and science. However, in the past, we've had teachers, English language arts teachers, social studies teachers who also utilize the 5E model. So even though we are showing it for science, it can be applied across subject areas.
Angie, you want me to go on?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Oops.
Okay, so flipping the science lesson plan. So basically this is in essence of taking a regular teacher lesson and flipping it and putting it in the hands of our students. So we're using the 5E model that also represents like regular lessons that we've created in the past, like your like the introduction, guided practice, independent, but 5E really lends itself to NGSS and science. Go ahead. Okay, so I'm Angela Barnett from Southern California, not far from Disneyland. I'm a 3rd grade teacher, former ELA, ELD site lead, AVID site coordinator. We're an AVID elementary school. When Kristen left me, I took over tech site lead as well. And when Kristen and I worked together, our classes also collaborated together.
So I'm Kristen Oropesa. As Angela said, you know, we used to work with each other when I was back in the classroom as a special day class teacher. So that means, you know, I was working with students with mild to moderate disabilities all across the spectrum. I had students who were autistic, who might have had a learning disability. Some had orthopedic impairments. The whole slew the whole gambit, you know, was in my classroom. The last 2 years, I've actually been a tech TOSA in a small district here in SoCal. So I got the opportunity to work not only with our special ed population still, but with the gen ed populations as well. So I was working with TK, so our very youngest learners, all the way through our 5th graders, which is, we were an elementary school district. Again, you know, the special ed classrooms, we had autism focused classrooms, we had deaf and hard of hearing classrooms I worked with. So, you know, my experience is mostly, you know, in the elementary school classrooms.
Okay, so we're going to jump into what is the NGSS 5E model. So again, it's not strictly for NGSS, but that is what we're going to represent today. So the 5E model is just engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. And it can follow a regular lesson plan. So we do have embedded links. So here is a link to a blog post we found, and the quote that I just liked was, in the 5E instructional model, science instruction is primarily student-led and inquiry-based. So regardless if we're at home or in the classroom, this is what we want to promote and support, regardless where students are learning. So just to give you an idea of what this may look like, so definitely the 4 C's are integrated here. So in the engage portion, this is where we want to gain that interest of the student, build curiosity through communication, maybe a KWL using your graphic organizers or thinking maps, making connections, inducing that questioning, especially in elementary. Our standards are asking and answering questions. And we know how hard it is no matter the question. So the KWLs are really good for getting students to start thinking and questioning. And then we have the explore portion, observing and listening, collaborating. So of course, collaborating is going to look a little bit different. But it's hands-on as much as possible. We know that might be a little bit difficult, but with these lessons we're going to show you, it does provide a bit of hands-on, guided and recording. And these can go full circle and back again. It's not a linear lesson, so it can toggle back and forth. Explaining, so summarizing and defining, so using that academic language also, getting critical thinking, building on that prior knowledge, using data and evidence. And then we have the elaboration part, which is extending that understanding. So again, this is where critical thinking and that rigor still applies. Recording, predicting, applying. And then we have our last little piece of the 5E model, which is evaluate. So this is throughout the 5E lesson, teachers will use that mostly for formative assessment, guiding that learning, making sure students are understanding the concepts and the lessons being provided. But in the evaluate part, this is where we can really use this as an assessment piece, that application piece. Can students apply what they've learned? And make it creative, student choice, showing student progress. It's not the end all either. It's just, can they take what we've learned in this unit? Because now we know for NGSS and science, especially elementary, they're gonna have to apply that in middle school and high school. So it's not just they know this and that's it. They're gonna have to be able to apply this later on. So a lot of it's reflecting too. So if you're in AVID school, you know that reflection is embedded in almost everything now. So before we move on to Hyperdocs, does anybody have any questions about the 5E areas? We can take any questions now or hold questions till the end.
Real quick, you mentioned AVID schooled, AVID. What does that stand for real quickly? Excuse my high school ignorance.
Okay, it is, so it is the, let me pull it up really quick because unfortunately I have summer brain right now. But it's college and career readiness. So a lot our schools right now, at least in California, AVID is only applied to middle school and high school. Only certain students will be allowed to take those classes. However, in elementary, we apply all those skills. They're embedded and integrated across our content and subject learning. It's goal setting, it's reflecting, and it's basically just teaching best practices. What skills can we teach our kids to be better learners? It's that self-management piece, executive functions. If you look at AVID too, there's a lot of schools though, even if they're not using AVID, they're using this particular type of program where classes are pushing college or college thinking, college readiness. But I also like to say it's also career readiness too. It's not just college, because we have a lot, and we're finding that out now with essential workers, that we have a lot of jobs that don't require college, but maybe certificated, but they do need to have some sort of background. So definitely college and career readiness.
So that AVID acronym
Thank you.
stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. So
There
all
we
of
go.
those things that Angela just said.
Yeah.
All right, thanks guys. I'll
Kristen.
let you get to Hyperdocs.
Okay, so what is a hyperdoc? If you're familiar, with the Google Suite and Google Documents, it's basically a Google Doc, or as you'll see here, Google Slides that have hyperlinks embedded into the document. So they call it a hyperdoc. What that essentially means, a hyperdoc, is this living form that has links embedded into it. It's completely teacher curated. And so, it gives students the ability to research and actually do a lot of creation on their part. A lot of people think it's just, a document that has links, and it goes far beyond that, and actually guides students through this 5E model that Angela just kind of explained. The links on the document can have anything from videos, you can direct them to websites, other Google Forms, Google Documents, and again, it's very much created by the teacher. Obviously, that means a little time and efforts put on, the teacher for creating these documents. And the website we have included here is the Hyperdoc website. I'm sorry, this is their resource document. And if you click on that doc, it's going to ask you to make a copy. But we found this document when we were first starting to work with Hyperdocs, and it has a lot of good information for those who are just beginning, who might not know what a Hyperdoc is, but might be interested in learning a little bit more. It tells you kind of what it is and what it's not, right? It's not just a Google Doc with links. It's not pre-made curriculum, right? It's not just a new trendy app or web tool. It's really getting the students to dive deeper into the lesson. It provides really engaging opportunities for students, and it's packaged very nicely for them, and providing access to everybody. If you scroll down the page, they have a ton of links embedded into their document here. Angela, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, so go back right where you see the highlighted piece.
Yeah.
So it says the Hyperdoc. So I don't make Kristen open it, but it's literally a Hyperdoc to teach you about Hyperdocs, like how to create it and what they are. So they're the Hyperdoc girls. If you Google them, they're amazing. They have a book out. They have tons of resources. And like Kristen said, Hyperdocs do take time to create. However, there's tons of templates out there already made for you. And we're going to provide some as well. So, but these are just resources for you if you'd like to dive deeper into Hyperdocs and explore it even further.
So actually on the Hyperdocs website, if you go there, they have an entire section where you can search uploaded templates from other teachers. They'll tell you subject matter, they'll tell you content. I was in there earlier this year, as our fourth graders talked about, the Native Americans, my fifth graders were talking about the colonies. There were teachers who had already done lessons, and it was a time saver for me, especially being I was a Tectosa at the time, so not having to create the entire Hyperdoc. And they're on their website. It's completely free. They're big proponents for the teachers give teachers. So you can go on there, you can look through the templates, you can download. Most of these obviously are Hyperdocs or Hyperslides that you can download and use in your own classroom. Okay. So the next couple of slides, we're going to show you some lessons. I was working for Little Lake City School District, and we were fortunate enough to have a science TOSA. And our science TOSA with the new NGSS, I would say new, but they've actually been here for a while, but with the new NGSS standards and implementing them in the classrooms, our teachers, our district didn't want to adopt official curriculum. So our science TOSA was creating these boxed kits that could be used in the classroom. I wanted, as a tech TOSA, to incorporate some technology into the science lessons. Again, you know, we don't want these subjects to be seen as just these isolated little modules. And so I took essentially what she did with the box kit, and I turned it into a hyper slide. So these are what you're going to see on this next slides. So they've been adopted from the work that she did with these boxes. So the first one in first grade, we talk about the moon cycle. And so if you click on this image right here, it's going to force a copy of the document for you. And again, all of our lessons are based on this 5E model. So you're going to see, you know, very prominent headings, and it's going to look the same from one document to the next. And I like doing that, especially working with the little kids, because you set up the routine of how you're going to complete this document together, and having those constant kind of standardized headings really helps them. So this is a document here. I'm just going to kind of take you through. We've labeled, again, each part of that 5E model up at the top. So this is the engage part. You've embedded a video directly into the slide. They can watch it right here. They record their observations below. On the next one, you know, they talk about a lot of like the wonderings and the curiosity in science, and the, you know, the phenomenon talk. And so this is where they record their wonderings. You know, where do they think the moon's light comes from? We've gotten asked questions in the past, you know, does this Hyperdoc or Hyperslide, does that replace like a notebook, right? And I say no, it does not. Working in my special ed classroom, what was it, 3 years ago, I used Hyperslides in conjunction with an actual science composition book. They go together. You know, you can't have one. You know, you can't have just the Hyperslide, because in science, especially now, kids are being asked to sketch and record and do things on the fly that they can't necessarily do on a Hyperslide or Hyperdoc. So we use both, but we just kind of want to make that distinction. This does not replace like the actual like inquiry work that they would be doing in a composition notebook.
I also want to add to like that we also say, depending if you have a curriculum or what you're expected to use in your classroom with the students, this is basically a supplemental piece to help with what you're teaching. We don't say that you have to use this in place of. And also too, because we're elementary teachers, we teach all subjects. So we're constantly integrating across the board. So like the writing, English language arts, you know, writing incomplete sentences, grammar, punctuation. So, and if you have students who can print, they can print these at home and write on them too. I mean, that's an option as well, but both. We're very much into blended learning if possible, but we all know it just depends on what we're gonna have access to. But this is also a lesson if you're in the class that you can do with your students. So we also were thinking that you would have to teach this whole group essentially before you can actually make this like a flipped lesson, or because you have to teach your students the concept of the 5E model and how to interact with it. So make sure to, even whatever grade level you're teaching, we have, I mean, my high school nephew and niece, they had teachers who never used technology in the classroom leading up to this. So if a teacher just throws a Google slide at them that looks like this, they may not necessarily know what to do with it. Not saying they couldn't figure it out, but it may be a good idea maybe to create like screencasts embedded where you can show like, this is what you should do on this slide, especially too if they have that resource to go back to it and look again. But whole group, I would suggest first. before
Definitely, I agree with that. And, and especially, working with the special ed population, they kind of need to know, again, that procedure, that routine before being given a document like this. And so we really, the first few that we do are all modeled, and we do it together. They're still doing a lot of the independent work themselves. They're writing, but they need to know kind of, again, like Angela said, how to interact with the actual document that's sitting in front of them.
Ladies,
and then we push these out through, oh, sorry. I was just going to say, we push these out through Google Classroom. We use these so that it'll make a copy for each student individually. So that's how we share them with our students.
One of the things that I wanted to just highlight, I started typing it and I thought it's going to take me forever to type, is we have classroom rituals. And in an elementary classroom, rituals are so important. Everybody wears this station. Where do we get this? And when do we move from here to here? And that's one of the things that we've lost in this remote learning. I don't want to ever call it e-learning or blended because it's none of those things. It's emergency learning. But we have to think about now, how do I get them to know the rituals? And you mentioned it, it was huge. I thought it was a great idea you just mentioned, was make a video just to figure out the rituals, because every kid can access YouTube. I guarantee it. Okay. If they have access as not part of a digital divide issue, okay, they know how to play a YouTube video. And so give those rituals to the students. The other thing about training in rituals is you're also not just giving in the rituals, you're receiving in the relationship, because you're their teacher, especially in that special education space, as we've heard over and over and over in the last couple of days. They need to see their teacher because that's who their teacher is. And if their teacher says so, okay. And that's hugely important. So it could be embedded right in the slideshow, or it could be given early and then re-embedded, because I don't know about you, but I require instructions multiple times in a row. But yes, training students on ritual is huge, guys. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so I'm just going to kind of quickly go through here. Angela, I'm watching the time.
Yeah. Do you want to go to the next one?
Yeah, so I wanted to point this one out. So these, again, that explore, kind of that hands-on, this is a slide where the students would look, right, these little first graders, and learning about the moon phases, would put the moon phases in order, right? They can click and drag. Everything is draggable on this slide. One of the things that you would want to do as, the teacher, I didn't do it on this one because it made the copy of it, but I like to go in and I like to change the master, and I make sure that these boxes are not able to be moved. And then down here, if you go down a little bit further, in that evaluate portion, right, they have another opportunity to come back to something they saw earlier in the lesson, which is important for any student, right? General education, special ed, they can't just see something once in the lesson and then it's over and done with. To give them more than one opportunity to come back and kind of reflect on what they've learned. You can see these have, the investigations, which in the new NGSS standards, investigations and experimentations are really big. So it has this investigation. Here's the video they would have seen. They can now watch it from their own screen. Again, the teacher could be projecting this and you guys are watching it as a whole group. They're thinking about it, and there's other videos here. Angela, is that good?
Go ahead and go to the
okay.
next one.
All right. So this is, again, based on these boxes that we got in my district. This is a second grade lesson. In second grade, they talk about erosion and weathering. And we're going to open this up so you guys can kind of see. Okay, again, that 5E template, right? I have what category, they're working on, what area. Up at the top, they has videos, so it's very visual for, some of our younger learners. I really like slides because it's not as overwhelming as seeing it on a doc. And when you're working with littles and you're working with students who might have disabilities, and seeing a lot of text on a page might be overwhelming for them. This kind of limits what they see. They're only asked, it's, their observations, I'm not asking them to write a whole paragraph. I'm just asking them to watch the video right there and to just record what they're seeing. I love the additional tools that Google brings in, especially from a special ed background. Being able to use some of those tools, use Grammarly in the district, so that helped my students who are a little hesitant with writing. So it gave them a little bit more confidence when it came to actually typing things onto the document.
Also, to think about like how minimal these slides are. There's not a lot going on each slide. Not only is that a benefit for the student, but for the teacher as well, because we've all known in the last couple of months, if you assign a lot of work, it's really going to hurt you as the educator because you can't get to all of it, not efficiently. So it's the essential pieces. What is going to be essential for your students to learn and for you to evaluate? So you have to think that way, essentialism at this point. So if it's just to see again, how does this relate to our phenomenon? So it's looking at the photos, going back, and can they apply now? And like Kristen said, sometimes it's not, you're not looking, I mean, you can even give, say, I need 3 to 4 sentences, or, or not put a limit on it, or put a limit on it. But also think about you, like Kristen said, she explained for the slides, for littles and differentiation. However, too, as a teacher creating these things, well, what would you feel more comfortable with? Is it creating a Google slide or a Google Doc? I mean, either way, either format will benefit your students, but you also have to think about what you're comfortable with too. So Kristen loves Google Slides. I'm getting more into Google Slides, but that's why we're going to give you an example too of a Google Doc as well, which was my go-to. So you can definitely use both. Think about yourself and your students. Yes, it is important to have all 5 E's. You should. If you don't, you need to somehow provide the other E somewhere, because these all intersect. So, and these aren't, we're not telling you need to have 2 slides per each section, or you can have 1, you can have 3 to 5. It's up to you. And somebody asked about units. So NGSS are pretty much units or modules. That's the way these are created. However, again, it's up to you what you're teaching, what your lesson is, and the class, and the makeup of your students or your classroom. So you make what works for you as well.
I'm also going to interject, Angela, and say, these hyper slides or Hyperdocs, they do not have to be done in one sitting, right? This is again a living document. You're working on it. Students are working on it. I know here in California, we don't always have time for science every single day of the week, at least when we were in the classroom, right? And so you work on it, as you have time in science to do so. So if they only get through 1 slide at a time, depending on your kids, depending on your class, that's fine. They are not expected to sit and go through all 13 slides, 14 slides, whatever it is, in one setting. So if they just do 1 little section at a time, that's what works for the classroom. I just kind of wanted to show you guys some of the things that we put in here. Our 2nd graders did this. They really liked this particular elaborate activity. They had the opportunity to watch this video about park rangers. They, in their science class, had a discussion with their teachers, and then I came in as a tech teacher, and we did a travel brochure together. So again, that collaboration component that Angela talked about, if you want them working in pairs or trios, again, being on and using a computer makes that really easy, because they can open this, one of the group mates can open the travel brochure, they share it with their peers, and then it becomes a collaborative living document with those 3. And so, that template right there, again, anything that we have in here, there's a template for you if you want to click on it. And then we also give them, you know, we talk about information gathering, and so there's some kid-friendly resources down there that you can direct them to, and not just Google, because we don't like sending our kids to Google. So there's Kiddle and KidRex. And then there's another Google document at the end, again, for the evaluate portion. So we try to bring in, you know, again, make it very interactive. Videos, Google Docs, Google Forms, you know, and kind of tie it into one nicely packaged little piece. Okay. And moving on.
So this is a third grade Hyperdoc. So this one's on weather and climate. And so you'll see how different it looks. It's just embedded links, but those are still curated by the teacher. And that's like, especially for elementary. I mean, I'm sure we have middle school and high school students who are not quite sure how to do research, right? So even providing them links on where to go is really beneficial. And so we provided the video. So you can see the difference, that there's a link to a video versus the video being embedded like a Google slide. That's the benefit of a Google slide, because the student clicks on the video, it's just the video. It doesn't take them anywhere else. So unlike here, this will take you to YouTube, and then you see the YouTube platform. So it definitely looks different. Go ahead and scroll down.
Okay.
So what we did is, when we attended a workshop through UCR, they gave us a ton of material, and, you know, thinking about flipping and creating student agency, student independence, ownership of learning. We're like, all right, let's put this somewhere. So a lot of those, like a data collection worksheets, graphic organizers, were created digitally. So these can also be printed and written on. So that's what I suggest to my students, is first write it out and then type your information into it, versus just typing on the document. But either way, that's just something when I'm in the classroom, that's what I suggest. But you can see here just the difference it looks like between a doc and a Google slide. So again, it's just preference, really, at this point. There's no right or wrong on what grade level or what you are teaching. This was just my go-to when creating this.
Yeah, so I'm just pulling up some of the documents Angela was talking about. So we got these documents again, and we did, you know, during this training we went to, we did these activities hands-on. They gave us paper copies to take with us, and Angela and I were like, we integrate technology so much in what we do in the classrooms. In her third grade classroom, in my special ed classroom, we said, you know, we don't want just another paper, right? Another handout. How can we actually, again, integrate some of the things that we need to do, right? We were being told we need to use technology into stuff that we're already teaching. And so these kind of graphic organizers, these documents came out of that training. And now students can do it either, like Angela said, if you want to have them write it out first and get that, you know, rough draft and then put it on here. My students were just doing it right on the screen. Okay, let's go back. Oops. Do you want to move on, Angela, from that?
Yeah.
Are you good? Okay.
So
right.
I think, does anybody have any questions before we move on to tools?
No questions, but you guys are approaching that 20-minute mark.
All right. Okay, tools to help with your lesson planning.
All right, so we kind of threw some websites I know Angela and I have used quite frequently when we're creating lessons to share with our students, whether it's science or not. But they're really good. They have a lot of good information. They're credible sources. And so we have up there for you National Geographic for kids. We have the Google Arts and Culture page, which is a great way to incorporate, you know, at least here, you know, where we're at, we don't have time for art. We usually have a specialist teacher, which is very sad. You know, as much as Angela and I love doing that, you know, within our own classrooms, Google Arts and Culture has a ton of stuff, a ton of articles and videos that can be incorporated again into things that you are already teaching in the classroom. And so, you know, trying to integrate that arts component again within our own curriculum. We have Brain Pop Junior, we have the ReadWorks. Phenomena for NGSS is great, right? For exploring the different phenomena. They have videos there. University of California, the Museum of Paleontology has K-12 resources, so not just the elementary school. If you're a high school teacher or middle school teacher, have a ton of resources there as well. Angela and I taught about dinosaurs in 3rd grade and fossils, and so, you know, that's something we use. The Annenberg Learner has a lot of earth science content, and then if you grab your copy of the presentation here with the bit.ly, you'll see down in the speaker notes as well, if you open the Google slide document, that there's additional resources down there for you. You just don't see them on the slide here. All right, Angela.
Okay, so Safe YouTube. If you're not familiar with Safe YouTube, and it also depends on what your settings are for your district. So what Safe YouTube does is you insert a link from YouTube into this link generator, and it gives you another link, and it essentially provides you with what you see like in a Google slide when you share a video. So it removes all the YouTube stuff. So it's free to use. It's awesome. You just have to make sure that when you change the sharing link and you share it with your students, that they can access it. That's the only thing. But this is an easy to use video integration link.
A lot of our students, especially even our littles, you know, they're so used to seeing YouTube, and they're, you know, one of the things I was seeing, at least with my little ones, they like to click like the suggested video links, you know, even though the video had been approved by the district, they still had access to click on the recommended videos, and that was just a rabbit hole we didn't want to go down. And so this is great because it eliminates all that distraction. It gives, like Angela said, just the video. There's no recommended links. They can't see comments, nothing. It's just the video. All right, so
yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say, we'll quickly go through these.
Yeah. So this is a tool that both students and teachers can use. I know I was having a conversation with Angela earlier. Screencastify is one of those apps that's, we call it a freemium, right? It's free to some degree, and then, you know, if you want additional features, you can pay for the additional features. Their free version has Google integrations. You're able to record up to 10-minute videos. You get 50 videos per month. And you can use it across platforms. So you can use it on Chromebooks, laptops, desktops. It has a nice little Chrome extension that you can add to your extension bar on your Chrome browser, and it makes it very handy. You know, Angela and I talked about doing these like how-to videos and tutorials, and I know that's something in the last few months, especially as a tech TOSA, I was pushing out to teachers all of the time. Not just students, my teachers needed the how-to videos. And so Screencastify was just so easy. You know, they'd email me, they'd say they needed help with something. I'd pull up Screencastify, I'd start recording, and then it shoots it off to them. I can share a link with them. It also saves to my Google Drive. So if I needed to reference that video, if another teacher or student came back and said, I need help with this, I don't have to re-record the video. I can just shoot the same one out. Oh, and I was just going to go back real quick because we do get asked this. Screencastify is fully compliant with COPA, FERPA, and is it SOPIPA? SOPIPA? Okay.
So Screencastomatic is also another platform to use. I like Screencastomatic. You're going to notice that they have 15-minute videos that you can create, and they are unlimited. Also, to free version versus paid version. And I've used both. I like both, but I've been using Screencastomatic more in March, and the only thing that I've been using Screencastify for was embedding audio. That was the only thing that I couldn't get Screencastomatic to do, was pull audio out of a video. So, but both are awesome, and I know we got a lot of our flippers using Screencastomatic, so But we put both of them on there because sometimes it's just personal preference too.
And a lot of times you're right. Each one does a little different thing, especially if you're using the free version of both of them. There's something one will do that the other one doesn't do quite as nicely. However, Angela is burying the lead because she's actually part of Screencastomatic's training series for flipped learners, which has been released as of last month. And we will have a special link coming to anybody that participates in here. If we have your email here at FlipTech2020, we just sat down with Christine Umayam from Screencastomatic, had a great interview about what they're doing with COVID, some of the things that are coming their way, and it'll have the links to some of that training that includes hers truly. So a couple things available there. And if you haven't mentioned Edpuzzle yet, we also have an interview that is already posted earlier this week with Kim Sabria, President CEO of Edpuzzle. Next week is Play Pause It. Then also we have, if you're a math person, Delta Math. If you're junior high or above, Mr. Delta Math himself and I sit down and talk. So we got a couple resources coming your way through FlipTech 2020.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's so much you can do with Flipped. It's amazing. So we threw in PairDeck because the Google slide deck that was created can be used for synchronous and asynchronous teaching. So if you want to start teaching your students how to use that Google Hyperslide, suggestion is maybe use it through PairDeck for synchronous teaching before you let go and create it as a flipped. One of the things, there's a link where it says PairDeck, and they have an audio implementation, so which is amazing. So now you can just throw in an audio on a slide and just give verbal directions to your students. So PairDeck is also great when integrating Google Slides. And so this is the time where you would start exploring on your own, creating an NGSS Hyperdoc lesson.
So usually when Angela and I do this presentation, it's usually like a 90-minute, 2-hour, because we incorporate that time to actually dive in and start working on something for your classroom, because that's so huge, especially when you go to conferences, right? You want that time to play, because otherwise you sit there and you forget about it by Monday morning. When you actually start working on it, then you have something to take back and you're excited about. So these kind of slides that we have for you here, we've included all of the NGSS grade level standards. So there's PDFs. We've included both the elementary level, and then we included middle or high school if you're a middle or high school teacher. We also included blank templates for you. So the lessons that you saw earlier in our presentation, we have some for you right here if you're ready to go, if you're excited about doing a 5E lesson in your science class or for science. This one right here is a hyper slide, and then we have the two on the Hyperdoc. So again, your preference, as Angela said, if you like the hyper slide, go with the hyper slide. If you like the Hyperdoc, do that. We have two different for the Hyperdocs. We have one that's just like kind of the bare bones. If you need a little guidance, if you're still not sure, about the 5E and you need a little input, there is this guided one for you, and it tells you what kind of things that you could include for each of those categories, which is very helpful.
Okay, so we are open for questions. If you need us to review anything, you have any questions on what we presented.
Angela, one question that we have in the chat is, how long does it take to make a Hyperdoc? And maybe I think what we might want to explain is, how much longer does it take to take a regular doc or regular slide and make it a Hyperdoc or Hyperslide?
Okay, so the hyper piece of it actually doesn't take time at all. The best thing you would do is, for instance, on this last slide, like if you're in our presentation now, you would insert a link. I don't know if, Kristen, you want to?
Yeah, you just want me to open up one of the Hyperdocs? Okay.
So we'll just show you quickly how to make a hyperlink. That part is super quick and easy. So we'll show you this first. So go ahead and do grab
Let's do
a
hyperlink.
yeah, do that one.
Okay, let's do, I have to move some of my things. Share. So I'm just grabbing that shared link, copy that link. I'm
While
gonna go
she's
back.
doing that, if you've been doing FlipTech 2020, what you've been working in is a hyper slideshow. Everything in there that's a link, it's nothing but a slideshow in Google Slides with links to everything. And you can link outside the slideshow or link to other places in the slideshow like we did for the thing. We're again trying to model what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm just getting my text there.
Now she's going to highlight it. And there's an insert link in the toolbar, but you can also go where it says insert at the top as well. So there's two locations, and you're inserting a link. So you'll see her FlipTech 2020 still there, and she just put the link in where it says link, hit apply, and now she created a hyperlink. And you can actually still change the font, the color, anything you want on that hyperlink. So that part's the easy part. Now the part that takes the time in creating these is you curating the lesson. So if you have a curriculum of a lesson, you know, go through that. And then you think about all the resources and tools that you would use. So like the graphic organizers and data collection sheets, think SAMR, like substitution, right? You have a black and white hard copy, and all you're trying to do is create a digital copy. So that's the part that does take the longest, is creating your lessons.
These are really great though. You know, once you do get them created, you know, you have them for every year thereafter, you know, no more, you know, the days of like filing cabinets and looking for that worksheet, you know, are gone. You have it, you know, your graphic organizers, you have everything embedded in the actual document, the videos, right? I was, you know, when I first started using technology in the classroom, I was going on to YouTube and just like searching videos as I needed them. Now I have in my document the video that I know will reach my students without having to search for it all the time. And again, it's a time, it might be time consuming in the beginning to create these, but it's going to be a time saver in the long run because you're going to already have these created for next year. And that's one less thing you're going to have to worry about.
Another question, how do you address, is there a website that provides various graphic organizers? So is there kind of some pre-made templates that they can use, I think? I think that's where we're headed.
That's a good question. I know Kristen might know, but I do know you can create them on Google Drawings. So I've actually created screencasts for my third graders on how to make a graphic organizer through Google Drawings. So you can actually teach your students how to create their own graphic organizers as well. But as far as a website, Kristen?
You know, with my last few districts, we've used Thinking Map. So that's like an official website and curriculum that the district pays for. So it's not necessarily free. But like Angela said, you know, creating it within the actual doc. And I'm going to go in here and just kind of show you really quick. I'm going to take a blank document here. And I do this, you know, as much as I can. I try to create within the G Suite because it's so much easier. Students can access it. You're not paying for anything, right? You know, not teachers pay teachers or anything like that. But just using the shape tools within Google Slides, you know, talking about making like Venn diagrams, right? And changing, I'm just going to change the color on this one. Let's see. And then I think I can change, let's see if I can change the transparency. No, I'm doing this on the fly. So
just go to the color. Go to the color, go down to custom. There you go, down there, transparency.
Thank you.
Lighten that up. Let's see. There we go. So now it's a Venn diagram right in the document, right? Again, you could, before you're pushing it out to students, whether you're doing, like Angela and I said, we used Google Classroom with our kids. So we pushed it out through Google Classroom. So every student got a copy of the document. I, as the teacher, would be going in and editing that master copy of the document and making it where the kids can't move around the Venn diagram. They might be able to edit the text and move that around, but the circles, are uneditable.
Could you say that again, please?
Yeah. So if you haven't gone and checked out the master on Google Docs or Google Slides, or I should say Google Slides, it's up here at the top. If you go to View, and I'm going to copy this really quick so I can actually show you guys what I'm talking about. I'm going to copy that, go up to View, go to Master. And this is the master copy of the document. So down here, I'm just going to make a copy of that page. And let's see. There we go. I'm going to go back to where I created this Venn diagram. I'm going to copy those shapes, go back to my master, and just paste those onto the blank page that I put on there. Now, if I go back and click out of the master and say I wanted to add that Venn diagram, it's there in my templates up at the plus sign. And now if I click on it, I can't click and move those shapes. They're right on the page and students can't move around, can't get deleted. So doing some of that work in the master kind of helps make sure that kids can't move stuff you don't want them to be moved around.
Cool. I just learned something.
Okay.
What are the questions?
Mm-hmm.
What other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Now, just as a thing, that Angela is actually going to the next one. She's actually next on the schedule. So you go back out to the schedule, which of course is a Hyperdoc, and you click that and you will find Angela and I over there here in just a few minutes. So I'm probably going to have to go, ladies, and make sure we load that one up. Kristen, I'm going to hand you host duties.
Okay.
Here in just a second so that I and Angela can leave. And if you want to hang around answering questions for the remaining 5 minutes, we do ask that you finish by 2, because more than likely a lot of the folks here will travel right over to the next one. And we, of course, are happy to have that for you. So thank you so much. Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.